Okay, we'll call the regular meeting of council for Monday, November 23rd to order at 3 p.m. And I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Moore that council adopt the agenda for this regular meeting of council November 23rd as presented.
I so move you, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. All in favor by consensus? Carried. Oh, you wait till the new handle I got given today.
You can't say that on air though.
Yeah, well, this one I might be able to. They phoned reception and called me Lord Craig. So Kara is adopting that right quick. She thinks it's appropriate. Anyways, things are strange. Next item, ask for a motion from Councillor Masterman that council adopt the regular meeting of council minutes from November 9th, 2020 as presented.
So moved, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. Consensus vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Kara, public comments?
Perfect. So I'm just going to let Wally Gardner in, and he's going to start us off for public comments.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Wally.
Okay, thanks very much. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank Council for taking the time to hear my input on mask and community transmission. There is no doubt that wearing masks reduces community transmission and protects not only the wearer, but those around them. The evidence obtained from leading scientists and epidemiologists and published by leading medical journals and organizations such as the Center for Disease Control, the Journal of American Medicine, and the British journal, The Lancet, all tell us unequivocally that masks work. Kansas implemented a mask mandate on July 3rd of this year, but some counties opted out. The CDC did a study of the results and discovered that in counties where masks were worn, the number of cases dropped per 100,000 people dropped dramatically by 6% in 1 month. Whereas in counties not following the governor's mandate, cases went up 100% in the same month, in 1 month. Why does High River need a mask mandate? There's two arguments to follow, and you've no doubt heard the first: to protect our seniors and vulnerable amongst us. Using the town of High River's demographic information, we find median age in High River is 15% higher than the rest of Alberta, meaning we have more seniors than most. In fact, 35% of our population is over 55 and in the vulnerable category. The other reason is economic. In my volunteer work through Rotary, I've worked as a cadre technical advisor in economic and community development, analyzing and evaluating Rotary projects, and spoken at various international conferences on the subject of small business and poverty reduction. High River has a great number of small business owners. Think about the small shops run by your friends and neighbors who typically employ one or two others: florists, auto parts, pet stores, beauty salons, and barbers. The engine that drives our economy and makes our town a success. They have to stay open to survive. If the doors are closed, they have no income. If one of their employees happens to become infected from a customer, they'll be forced to close as there is no backup staff. Being closed for 2 weeks, particularly during Black Friday sales when businesses start to turn a profit, would be devastating. Businesses need to be able to protect their essential staff without alienating their anti-mask customers. Being able to point to a Town of High River bylaw poster requiring masks allows them to educate their customers and, equally important, protect their economic investment and livelihood. Strathmore recently did not pass a mask mandate when they had the opportunity to do so, citing personal freedoms and disregarding an individual's right to choose. I would put it to you that High River is very much like a cruise ship. If one guy starts to dig a hole through the floor of his cabin and letting the water in, the other passengers are going to be upset. You'll hear arguments from anti-maskers, my body, my choice, similar to the guy in the boat yelling, "It's my cabin, what's it matter?" Personal choice only goes so far when we're all in the same boat. And last week, High River was that boat. We were floating like a yellow dot in a sea of purple, according to the news cases information graphics. This week, sadly, we're on the enhanced list, subject to targeted measures, and our boat, quite frankly, isn't looking too watertight. I would urge council to act decisively and rapidly in order to not only protect our vulnerable seniors, but save our local economy and protect our small business owners, their livelihood, and their employees. Thank you for your time.
Excellent. Well stated, Wally. Appreciate it. Is there any questions from council to Wally for clarification purposes? We will be discussing this at the end of this meeting. Item number 8 deals specifically with mask bylaw discussion. So I don't have any hands up from council that have any questions for you, Wally. So appreciate your input.
Thank you very much, sir. I look
Yep.
forward to your decisions.
Excellent.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks, Wally. Kara, anything else? Anyone else?
We received 6 written submissions. So Chelsea Niemans has requested that council not issue a mask mandate. She's concerned that people do not observe physical distancing when wearing a mask and expressed concerns about the increase in numbers in areas that have implemented mask mandates. Anne-Marie Martin has requested that council make masks mandatory at all indoor places in High River. Carla Adolph has requested that council make masks mandatory in High River. She spoke about how she will not support certain local businesses because of the inconsistencies in terms of masking. Courtney Ament has requested that council not issue a mask mandate due to the increasing numbers in communities that have issued them. She indicated that she has been supporting High River businesses because there is no mandate. Christina submitted a letter to council opposing the mandate of masks with specific questions for council to consider as part of this topic. And Annie Rowe has indicated that she supports the use of masks in High River.
Perfect. Thanks, Kara. So, like I said, we will be dealing with this in item number 8 later on in the agenda. So we'll move on through if Kara's all done. Item number 5 just deals with the strategic priority chart, which is there for everybody's perusal. Is there any questions on the chart? I don't think there's any changes on it or anything from where our priorities are right now. So from there, we'll move into item number 6, which is the first reading for the amended animal bylaw. And I'll put it over to Peter.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Peter Jenner. I'm the Manager of Emergency Management and Protective Services. Today, I'm bringing you bylaw 4585, 2020, which is an amending animal bylaw for first reading. And this bylaw will specifically address pigeon ownership in High River. You have your council report in front of you, but I'll just highlight a few things. As you recall, administration and protective services did extensive review of some bylaws over the last few years, the animal bylaw, the traffic bylaw, and the good neighbor bylaw. And during that process, we had done some extensive engagement with the public, which included a survey as well as public engagement. During that time, we did actually address pigeon ownership, as it did come up, and we did recognize that in other bylaws in the province. So during our engagement, we did discover when it came to the issue of pigeon ownership, 48% of those surveyed in High River did not support the owning of pigeons in High River, and 30% were in favor of owning them. And then we had 18% that were actually unsure and probably needed to know a little bit more about pigeon ownership, as it probably wasn't very well known. At the September 14th council meeting, a delegation had presented to council that were from a local pigeon owner, but also representation from the Calgary Racing Pigeons Association. And they had outlined the sport of pigeon racing and alluded to how popular it is and generally the conditions around owning pigeons. So at that time, council had asked administration to revisit pigeon ownership and look at what other communities are doing. So administration has investigated other communities in Alberta with pigeon bylaws. And as well, we've looked outside of the province of Alberta, looking at other communities across Canada, as well as looking at information from Europe, Australia, in the United States, and pigeon owner associations there. And with that, we did discover that there really wasn't any clear direction on pigeon ownership in more of an urban setting, more of those micro backyard type of ownership of pigeons. Not a lot of clear direction on that, but there was enough information to help us out with looking at 3 areas of focus, my apologies, 4 areas of focus to help inform this bylaw. And those areas were looking at flock size, which we have set a restriction of 10 pigeons as recommended in this bylaw. We also looked at loft size and within the bylaw, loft setbacks from other property owners and neighbors and so on. And then finally, an annual licensing for pigeons in the community, which has brought us to this amending bylaw as recommended. So I'm happy to take any questions on it from council.
Thanks, Peter. Councillor Masterman.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass, and thank you, Peter, for the report and the bylaw coming back. I did have just a couple of really quick questions, but I just wanted to start off by saying that I really, really hope that everybody in High River takes note of this and lets us know how you feel about it, pro or con. It's really, really important that we have as much information as possible going in. And that kind of leads me to my first question, Peter, which is, I know when we discuss this in the future, I'm still a little foggy as to how big an issue this is. How many people have birds? How many birds are there? Are there just racing pigeons? Are there people who have pigeons for other purposes? And I don't even know what they might be, eating possibly. But I guess and I don't know how we kind of go about doing this, but I, for one, would really find it helpful to know kind of how big this issue is, and I'll let you answer that. But first, I just wanted to also say that I noticed in the under implementation, you said that various pigeon associations and enforcement would be notified of this, and I guess I would also hope that anybody who responded to surveys, anybody who said before how they felt about pigeons, who may not be aware that it's now back, that we just kind of do all our usual messaging to try to get the word out. But I'll let you answer my I guess just my only question. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Masterman. In this bylaw, the types of pigeons that we addressed, it wasn't not the consumption of pigeons that does exist in some cultures. I don't think it's we're not hearing of that in High River as an issue where consumptions of pigeons is what anyone from the public is looking for. And that would normally fall under our livestock as part of the definition. So for this bylaw, we define pigeons as either racing pigeons, which is mostly what we see is racing pigeons, or what we've heard of in High River. Others might be show pigeons, where there's different breeds of them, and they'll use them for just showing them at different activities and venues and so on. And I think the other one was performance pigeons. And a performance pigeon is, to put it without getting into too specifics, performances, they do different flying techniques and will do spins and drops and so on. What I understand in my research is that isn't, that's becoming less and less of a desired sport, where it's actually just racing pigeons is primarily we see in this sport of owning pigeons, which is, I wouldn't say it's a dying sport, but I think the groups that are advocating for pigeon ownership are trying to get others involved and promote pigeon ownership through racing primarily.
I guess I wasn't aware there was kind of a snowbird's version of, aerobatic, acrobatic pigeons. But I guess I know there's more than one association. During the presentation, it was, indicated that there were several different associations. And I'm just wondering if there's any way, as we're going back into the discussion on this, whether we could find out from, whether administration could find out from all the associations how many birds there are, how many members there are in High River, if that's possible.
Yeah, I think we could explore that and get a better snapshot of who they're aware of from their own associations.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass, and thank you very much, Peter, for your report, and also for revisiting this because of the comments that were received previously. Just two comments. I like the fact that the term is urban pigeons because it includes non-racing as well as, I guess, racing, because council did receive a letter from a citizen who actually deliberately moved to High River because of our pigeon allowance of pigeons at the time when that particular person moved. And then he was quite disappointed to find out that we had changed the bylaw. And I think the other thing I like that you followed through with that we had discussed that we wanted them licensed, because I think that's very important. And to speak to Councillor Masterman, I agree totally that we should find out, have a good idea about exactly how many are in town and the organizations, and to have them properly registered, because even if people have a non-racing pigeon, I think it would be important to have them still registered and licensed, just so we can kind of keep track of things. But I appreciate you revisiting this very much, Peter, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cooey.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass, and thanks, Peter. A lot of information, and I think on the news last week I saw a fancy pigeon sell for $2 million. So yeah, it's obviously a thing out there.
I'm out.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's beyond my capacity. I actually just found, I think I found the answer to my question. I just I couldn't recall, but I just want to clarify that part of the licensing would be that they have to be a member in good standing of one of the clubs that we deem a legitimate club. That is correct, right, Peter?
That is correct. Yeah, that's a condition of licensing, that you're a member in good standing with one of the registered pigeon clubs and or associations.
And I just want to clarify something, and because maybe I misunderstood, based on Councillor McMillan's comment about the people moving here because of the of allowing pigeons. My understanding is we have never allowed pigeons, but that one in particular resident was given permission by our town manager of the day to keep his pigeons because this conversation, our animal bylaw, was coming forward. We've never allowed pigeons officially. I think it's all been, is that not correct, Peter? I just want to be clear whether I'm right or not.
Yeah, the previous bylaw before the one that we brought in the spring, it wasn't really clear on allowing or disallowing. So the way the bylaw was written, it wasn't clear that you could or you couldn't have pigeons, and would actually be up to interpretation. And so we did have one resident with pigeons that there was a complaint and was being investigated by enforcement, and that led to allowing them to have pigeons until we revisited our bylaw and rewrote it.
Appreciate that. I thought pigeons were exempt, so that's good.
Yeah.
Thanks for clearing that up. Thanks, Peter.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. One thing I note in your report, Peter, you're talking 10 pigeons per yard. Was there any discussion about density issues? Like we know there's one area of town that has probably 6 or 8 pigeon coops within a very small area. Is there any way that could be dealt with?
Yeah, it's a great question. That was how we landed on recommending 10 pigeons as the maximum for one household, was to help keep the numbers low, to help address any density issues in a community, that there might be multiple owners in that community.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. No further questions, so I'll ask for a motion from Councillor McMillan that council give first reading to bylaw 4585/2020 to amend bylaw 4567/2019, being the bylaw to promote responsible animal ownership and to control, regulate, and license animals in the town of High River, and that council direct administration to circulate the proposed changes to the community and associated pigeon racing or similar organizations, and that a public hearing be scheduled for, and I've changed this because of another public hearing, but I've adjusted this to January 25th. Chris and I spoke about this. January 25th, 2021.
Okay, I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. Consensus vote, all in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Well done, Peter.
Thank you.
Land sale repealing bylaw. Basic housekeeping, but Kara.
So good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present the land sale repealing bylaw for the years 1950 to 1960. Administration has conducted a thorough review and have determined that the active land sales bylaws from this period are now obsolete. Land sales are conducted through agreements, therefore these bylaws are not necessary. Rescinding these bylaws will have no effect on the ownership of these properties, and therefore we're recommending that council consider giving first, second, and third reading to this bylaw in order to repeal these bylaws. Are there any questions?
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass, and thank you very much, Kara. And first of all, just a comment, I want to make note of thank you for following up with my query on September 28th about if repealed bylaws could be given to the museum. So I appreciate that. And now I know I get teased because I read everything, but on page 148 I wonder why the mayor was allowed to sign the bylaw regarding land that he was purchasing. I found that rather intriguing. And honestly, fellow councillors, take the time to start reading, like from page 159, you'll get the biggest laugh at the typos that were going on. Like, we've been called Psy River. At one time, it's dated and it's capital P exclamation mark I.SSED. It's hilarious. You have to look. I was in tears at times with laughter. So I know I get teased, but I'm telling you, it was like, I visualized, I kept thinking about Tim Conway. Was Tim Conway the secretary at the time with these typos? Or was someone falling asleep, their elbow hitting the keys? It's a riot. So anyway, but yeah, please just take a little bit of a moment to look at some of them if you need a little bit of uplifting during these challenging times.
Thanks, Carol. Councillor Masterman.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass, and thanks for noting that, Councillor McMillan. I almost had to text people to alert you to that, but I knew you'd all see it anyway. But so many of those look like they were some strange code that Lord knows who. And I'm thinking, well, they can't be trying to hide somebody because the mayor's land, thing is right there with his name on it. But so I'm really glad, Kara, that you guys don't write in code and that you have a little bit more respect for the language than they did back in the 50s. One thing that I just wanted to note quickly, and I'm sure you would have all seen this, but for anybody listening, I thought it was really interesting. Between 1950 and 1952, there were about 10 properties that were given grants to World War II veterans. And I thought that was a really nice touch. So anyway, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Yes, I just wanted to add to that. And then, Carol, you are not the only person that reads everything, even though you might think you are.
All due respect, Councillor Moore, I just get very teased about it. So I know I'm not the only one, but I get teased a lot about how I read it. And it's worth it because you get some really good laughs at times.
Who would ever do that?
Or maybe they're not teasing you because of reading it.
Okay, we're off topic. I'm going to get drug into this because I'm the teaser. No further questions, so I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Nychuk that Council give first reading to bylaw 4588-2020 and that Council give second reading to bylaw 458-2020 and that all council present give unanimous consent to proceed with third and final reading of bylaw 458-2020. And I'm going to leave it there because I'd like to do third after we get unanimous consent. So, Councillor Nychuk.
Yep, be happy to give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor, consensus? Motion is carried. Ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that Council give third and final reading to bylaw 4588-2020.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I'll give you that motion.
Thank you. All in favor, consensus? Motion is carried. Thanks, Kara. And yes, Carol, I tried to read that and I couldn't decipher the first page, so it was quite unbelievable, but that's as far as I got. I did not read the whole thing. Which one are we doing? This is split up here. Offsite levies. Kaylee.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me to present here today. I am presenting before you today bylaw 4586-2020, the offset levy bylaw. This is an update to our 2013 bylaw. As noted, our previous update was held in 2013. This update will include the addition of facilities to our bylaw, which was a recent update that took place in the Municipal Government Act. Additionally, we were updating the costs for construction on a lot of our projects so that they would be current with today's inflation. Our best practice laid out by the Municipal Government Act is to review this bylaw every 3 to 5 years, which would be on par for review this year. So I'm presenting this today for a first reading. Is there any questions?
We've been through this a number of times, Kaylee, so I think looks like we're good. I don't have any questions. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Moore that council give first reading to bylaw 4586/2020 and that council direct administration to schedule a public hearing for January 11th, 2021.
I will give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. Consensus vote, all in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, Kaylee. Next up is the rate bylaw with Ray.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'll be presenting the 2021 rate bylaw and the changes to it. The biggest part is there's not many changes to the rate bylaw, but we do have a little bit of cleanup going on, a few additions where necessary, and some removing. The report summarizes all the changes. We tried to make it clear within the schedule for the rate bylaw by doing a strikeout and in red for any changes. We did move a couple of the rates to a correct respecting area. For instance, the address map for the GIS, stripping and grading to engineering. Some new charges in the development area that are listed in the bylaw. There are some removing of items like the no longer selling town flags and the utility rates, removing the Foothills County and Cargill, since we have an agreement coming up that will be addressing those rates. Fire protection, it looks like a lot of changes, but it's all the fines and penalties, which will be in a separate bylaw forthcoming to council, and some additional mapping charges. We have staff on hand in case there's any detailed questions or something that I can't address. These rates will come into effect January 1st, 2021, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Ray. Councillor Nychuk.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Thanks, Ray, for your presentation. Appreciate it. Just a couple of quick questions, just my curiosity. Number one, out of the rates, you gave a percentage of 30% of our revenue is gained off of the rate structure. Do you have any idea what is gained off of bylaw infraction rates?
Bylaw infractions are actually quite small in comparison to our total revenues. When I say 30%, most of that are utilities, which are driven by the rate bylaw. Yep. So that's why the percentages seems like a very high number, but as far as penalties and fines, it's quite small.
Yeah, I assume that, but just want a clarification. Thank you. And the other one was with the movies. Complex rates and simple rates. Did we use other modeling throughout movie type municipalities, i.e. other places in Alberta or maybe places in BC, the greater Vancouver area, to determine those two amounts, that 1,000 and that 500, or did just we kind of come up with those on our own?
I saw Chris propped up online. Did you want to address this, Chris?
Certainly, Ray, through the Councillor Nychuk. We are reviewing that under our policy framework for filming and special events. Based upon our experience with Black Summer, we do think that our current rate of $1,000 per day based upon that complexity of a film is a little bit on the short side. So we're doing a comprehensive review as part of the policy review at this point in time, which may reflect that we have to amend this bylaw later in the spring.
Super. Thank you, Chris.
Councillor Cooey.
Thanks again, Mayor Snodgrass, and thanks very much, Ray. Just a few questions, and I'm just kind of, because there's a lot of rates, I'm trying to understand kind of how they are all administered. And I'm just going to, for example, solid waste. Who does the investigating and who does the enforcing? You know, I see we've got a charge for if there's an unsuitable waste receptacle. Well, I assume if we have assuming that means the ones we're picking up. If it's not one of ours, we aren't picking it up. Maybe that's more commercial. Maybe someone's not storing their waste. But I'm just curious, who administers, who manages? Is that our staff potentially seeing the concern or the hazard and bringing it forward? And does bylaw carry it out? I'm not sure how these get carried forward. And maybe they're just there for those one-offs if we have an issue.
If I may address that, typically we don't have many issues. The bylaws are there just in case an issue comes up and we have something to do enforcement. Normally it's the respective departments. So you raise the issue of solid waste. So that would be operations if they happen to notice. Usually it's addressed directly in conversation saying this is not allowed, and we don't get into an enforcement issue. It's only if it's necessary. If we don't have compliance with education, then we'll have enforcement. Then help carry that out. That's contracted to Foothills County does our enforcement for us. So if that's necessary, we contact through Peter, right? Because he oversees that enforcement. Gets our CPOs to issue an enforcement or a fine if necessary.
Perfect, thanks. And I assume it's the same with alarms. If someone has multiple alarms. Just curious, what does removing wet garbage from a premise? I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't think I've got operations on the line,
Okay, no problem.
but Riley may try to address it. It's I believe it's in there on wet garbage. So if it's wet and too difficult to handle, or often is too heavy. If something contains a lot of moisture, then it becomes very heavy and may overload the arm for removing the garbage.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And just one other question, because I know much of the fire services was removed because it has its own bylaw. There was a section remaining in there, and I just was wanting to ensure that was intended to be separated. It hasn't been crossed out on our copy. So I just wanted to be clear whether that was supposed to be in there or supposed to be with the fire services rates. Sorry, on page 448.
Yeah, no, I'm quite sure that Cody and Peter went through it deliberately, and if there's ones that were left in, it is on purpose. We can we can just double check just to make sure, but I believe all that are left are supposed to be there.
Awesome, thank you, Ray.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Ray, for your report. Just a couple of comments and a question. Just to confirm, so this rate bylaw shows a 0% increase in water, wastewater treatment, etc. correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And this may seem like a dumb question, but what's a pageantry plan?
That's not a dumb question because I asked the same one. The pageantry are so planning and development when they have the signs going into a new development and they have like the flags. Those are referred to as pageantry. It's the I guess the announcement or the advertisement of a new area or subdivision.
Oh, interesting. So you learn something new every day. And I'm not sure. The next two things are more I would expect, I guess, it's more me saying it as a follow-up if someone could get back to me. The 10 pass for Studio A at the rec center when it says it's $99, and that's for drop-in. Is that like for a variety of activities or just one? Like that kind of confused me that there would be a 10 pass for an actual studio. I understand with the pool, but I was just a little bit confused with the studio class.
I believe it's meant for multiple, but we can confirm that.
Thank you. And then I don't know if Darlene it happens to be on, but just something that prompted me when I saw the campground. I was just wondering if we ever got a report from the Lions Club about how the camping season went in 2020. So that's just something I'd appreciate in the future. I know it's not relative to this, but it's just I saw the campground on the rates and it kind of jigged me to just put forward that question.
Sorry, you cut out in the middle of your question. Would you mind?
Oh, sorry. I just was wondering if we had received a report from the Lions Club about how the 2020 camping season went in light of COVID and everything.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Ray.
Okay, no further questions, Ray. Thank you very much.
If I have one more comment, just to make sure
ahead.
that it's clear, we had one change in the business licenses, and this is trying to address a request for a partial year. So instead of just a 1 month or 1 week or 1 day, it was meant to try to capture multiple months, but not having to wait until after July 1st. So it's kind of like a half price business license, but it could be issued anywhere within the year. It's a small change, but it was a little bit awkward to try to capture within the bylaw, and I just hope that that was clear in the rates. Okay, so hearing no debate, then I guess it was.
Well, hands are going up, so it must be good. Thanks, Ray. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Masterman that council give first reading to bylaw 4582 2020. And that council gives second reading to bylaw 4582 2020, and that all council present give unanimous consent to proceed with third and final reading of the previous mentioned.
I'm happy to do all those, Mayor Snodgrass. Thank you.
Thank you. Consensus vote, all in favor? Motion carries. And I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Cooey that council give third and final reading to bylaw 4582 2020.
I will give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion carries. Thanks, Ray. You're still on, right?
I'll come back.
Disposal of assets. As soon as I flip my page over. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. So the Town of High River is lacking a policy direction or statement on the sale of surplus goods or assets. It's not a long policy, but we were looking for a guideline and clarification. It's the more the administration of it. In the past, administration has been doing things not out of bounds or out of line, but we wanted to make sure that there was a policy statement that was issued by council on exactly how the transparency would happen and how do we get rid of our excess items. It's normally not a large ticket or large revenues, but all this does is put a framework around it.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Pretty seamless. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. And I just want to say thanks, Ray, for this. I think this is really good, especially for the transparency piece. So I was very happy to see this.
No further questions. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Moore that council adopt the disposal of assets and surplus supplies policy FINPOL 103.
I will give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. Councillor Kinghorn with a question.
Yeah, just a question for clarification. If we pass this bylaw, it'll come into effect January 1st. My understanding is we have not passed the fire rate bylaw yet. My expectation is we would have that before January 1st and pass that through council so that it would be covered off. Is that correct, Kara? I'm not sure how that would work.
We're looking at the fire bylaw, and I think Cody was actually on here. So if Cody wants to jump in, so one of the things that we're looking at is working on the fire bylaw. There were some challenges with it, and I think some areas where we wanted to modernize it. But maybe I'll let Cody speak to it.
Well, my question is more about process, Kara, in that if we pass this bylaw, it removes all of the fire rates that are currently in place today, correct?
Correct.
If we do not have a fire rate bylaw in place by January 1st, what happens?
Right. So right now they're currently in our bylaw, so we'll have to bring forward. I believe the fire bylaw is coming quite shortly, so probably the December meeting. So
as long as we have it in place by the 1st.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and just to clarify that this motion is for the disposal of assets and surplus supplies policy, right?
Yeah, so I think we've mixed up our issues. The rate bylaw is coming into January 1st. It will remove those fines and penalties from the fire section. Not as Kara was saying that we're expecting a fire rate or a new fire bylaw to be coming before council prior to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we shouldn't be out of bounds or offside.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep, no problem. So the motion on the floor from Councillor Moore is to adopt a disposal of assets and surplus supplies policy. I'll ask for a motion. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ray.
Thank you, Council.
The big one from Sarah, the Spitzy Crossing cost sharing agreement. This has been an enormous undertaking, to say the least.
Yes, indeed.
Portion, go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. The Spitzy Crossing cost sharing agreement is the key tool for ensuring that the infrastructure that's needed to support Spitzy Crossing in its ultimate development is built. So there are a total of 9 landowners in the Spitzy Crossing area, but only 4 of the 9 will actually be signing the agreement. Those are the landowners that actually intend to be developing the land themselves. The other landowners intend to eventually sell their land to developers in the future, who will then be responsible for their proportions of the cost sharing as laid out in the agreement. Administration mailed all 9 landowners a copy of the draft cost sharing agreement and requested feedback from them. There was one amendment that was specifically requested. The lawyer representing Weber Properties Limited provided a letter which is part of your agenda package, provided a letter to the town indicating that Weber Properties would not be signing the cost sharing agreement. The other signing parties have since confirmed to administration that they do not have any concerns with this change, as they understand the future developer of this property will be responsible for their proportional share of the costs. Administration recommends that council accept the revised Spitzy Crossing cost sharing agreement and direct administration to advise the landowners that the agreement will be registered on title and for administration to facilitate the execution of the agreement by all parties. Are there any questions from council?
Thanks, Sarah. One question for me. So we got 4 out of 9 that are signing it, 5 of 9 are not. This gets passed, this gets registered on land titles. Of the 5 that are not signing it, when they do go to develop, whether they sell it to a developer or whatever, but when that parcel of land is going to be developed, they will be bound by this agreement, correct?
Yes, they cannot get a subdivision and they cannot get a development permit without paying the costs as defined in Schedule C.
Being part of this. Okay, perfect. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mayor Snodgrass, for asking that question, because that was one of my questions. So thank you for having that clarified. Sarah, thanks for your presentation. Just a little bit of an editing issue on page 469. It's just about, it's on the top, it says the amount on 4 May 2020, and there should be a capital M for May, just for. And then my other thing that I'm kind of curious about is on page 474 and 475. I'm just curious as to the verbiage in why they list chairman instead of just chair. I just think that it's 2020. Why not have it just that there's a chair appointed? And so I would suggest that I would like to see in the agreement that it's just changed to chair wherever there's chairman. And then my other question is, with the McKelvey report on page 483 about the intersection upgrades, I'm just curious because that report was done in 2017 based on 2013 numbers. So do you have an estimated cost of what those intersection upgrades would be now? So sorry to kind of bombard you with a bunch of different ones between, yeah.
Oh, that's fine. I think we can handle the first two. I have no concerns about making those changes. In terms of the costs, I would like to see, I would like to see if Riley could answer that question, because I don't have that information. Would Riley be able to address that question?
So the costs have not, so we have original set of costs in there. The costs have not updated since they were originally done. The intent is that once this is in place, we need to put it on some sort of cycle where we constantly revisit the cost, probably mirroring it with the offsite levy process, because it is very, very similar in terms of how costs need to be updated within the agreement. The agreement does make provisions for the town to update the cost from time to time. So I guess the short answer is no, they haven't been updated recently.
Okay, because I was just noting, because for one of the intersections, it says 693,000 and then another one 732,000. So I was just kind of wondering ballpark what you would figure in 2020 and beyond what they might be, but.
No, I don't know. There hasn't been a huge amount of cost escalation in recent years, so they should be still fairly reasonable.
Okay, thanks, Riley. And thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Councillor Masterman.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Sarah, thanks very much. I'm a little unclear on Mr. Weber. You know, where he is, if like he's part of this, but he said he doesn't want to be part of this. And so can you just sort of clarify what does happen if he, you know, should go to sell the land or go to develop the land? Yeah, sorry to be thick on that.
Oh, that's fine. So the original intention was that he was going to be one of the developers that was going to develop the land himself, just like the other landowners that are intending to sign the agreement are intending to develop the land themselves. He has decided that he no longer wants to develop the land himself. So when he's ready, he'll be selling the land to a developer and they'll be in charge of the cost. So he's decided that in light of that big decision on his part, it doesn't make sense for him to sign the cost sharing agreement.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Thanks so much.
Sarah, one other question before I go into this motion. That part of this motion states that council direct administration to arrange for the majority share landowners to execute the cost sharing agreement. So the majority share landowners, if only 4 of the 9 are signing, how do we get majority share of the landowners? Is it land by volume or land by person?
I can jump in. It was done by land, so majority of the area.
Majority of the area. Okay. Okay, Thanks, Riley.
I think we're close to half now, though. I haven't actually reran the numbers since Weber dropped out, but it was with Weber we had majority. I imagine we're close to half now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll ask for a motion from Councillor McMillan that council direct administration to arrange for the majority share landowners to execute the cost sharing agreement, and that council authorize the mayor and chief administrative officer to execute the cost sharing agreement.
I'll give you that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion carries. Thanks very much, Sarah.
Thank you.
That's a one done. Okay, now we're off to item number 8. So the mandatory masks discussion. So reason why this is back on the table is obviously because we've talked about it before, and I can't remember when that was. A number of weeks ago we spoke about this, as there's a few other communities, Calgary and Okotoks, had done it at that time. We decided that we were not interested in doing any mandatory mask bylaws in this town, and that we would review in the future if needed as things progressed. So we got a couple of emails coming through, and council started going back and forth a little bit. So we said, let's just bring it back to a meeting, be open and transparent with the community as to where we're at with it, and have the open conversation. Now there's a number of emails, and I've got texts from people and Facebook messages and everything else that's coming from all angles. I'm just going to leave that there and open it up to council for discussion as to where you stand on this issue. Now I'll go to Councillor Masterman.
Thanks so much, Mayor Snodgrass. And yeah, I do really appreciate a chance to revisit this, I believe 3 months after our initial discussion back in August. I also wanted to thank the people who took the time to send us emails and texts and everything else to share their views, and Wally Gardner for speaking to us earlier today. Quite a bit has happened since our last meeting. The cases of COVID have increased significantly, including Alberta's record single-day high of almost 1,600 on Sunday. People continue to get sick, sometimes alone without loved ones because of COVID restrictions. Families have become irreparably broken. Doctors, nurses, other healthcare professionals continue to work long hours, stressful, very stressful conditions, while many people continue to act like COVID does not exist. Masking continues to be an issue despite overwhelming evidence by doctors and other healthcare professionals who maintain that masking helps restrict the spread of COVID. And these medical experts include many in High River that I've spoken to personally, and the chief medical officers of health in each province, including Alberta and the federal government as well. I trust the opinion of these respected health officials, professionals who work on the front lines of this battle, who earn their medical degrees after many years of hard work at respected institutions of learning, not by surfing Google and social media. Equally important to what's happened in the last 3 months is what has not happened, and mainly Alberta's steadfast refusal to be the only province in Canada without mandatory masking. Many council members spoke in August very eloquently. I really appreciated all the feedback at that meeting. Many of you spoke about it not being High River's responsibility, and I couldn't agree more. it is the role of the provincial government, but it's clear, and maybe things will change tomorrow. But we can't know anything about what the Premier might be talking about tomorrow. And Dr. Henshaw, if the government refuses to do it, I think it's up to us to protect our community, to show leadership in this area. I find it very ironic that the very people who question the value of using masks in public places are often the ones who are the most vocal about the negative impacts of lockdowns and threats to the community. I'm sorry, I've said this before on council, you can't have it both ways. You either do your part to restrict the spread of COVID, or you do nothing and accept it when cases reach the point where governments have no choice but to make decisions that restrict businesses and impact the community. Some detractors argue against the value of masking by pointing out that cases of COVID in places that have masking bylaws, including Calgary and Edmonton, have increased. All I can say, and there's no way of knowing, I wonder how many more cases these communities would have had without a masking bylaw. So I would like to propose a motion. Again, I stick my big neck out, but I propose a motion that council direct administration to prepare a bylaw requiring masking in all indoor public spaces, except schools, for all residents over the ages of 2. The only exceptions when people with valid medical reasons documented in writing by a medical professional. And Mayor Snodgrass, I would ask for a recorded vote on this motion as well. And I'll just leave that out there, and thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. So there is a motion on the floor. I wasn't able to write it down quite that fast. If you want,
I'll email it to you.
Or just write it in the chat box down here, Bruce, and then we can all see it, if that's okay, just while we're having the discussion. Okay, I'll move over to Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Thank you, Bruce, for your motion and comments. I am a mask wearer, and I think masks are good for protection of other people and not necessarily of yourself. So if you are a considerate, unselfish person, you may wear a mask. However, and we've heard so many arguments from so many people on both sides of the masking mandatory issue. I just have witnessed so many people in the community that are wearing masks, and actually a very high percentage of our community are wearing masks. However, of those people, probably 90% of the mask wearers are not wearing them properly. If it's just a strip of cloth across your face, it's not totally effective. And we were taught when we first experienced the COVID crisis about 8 months ago, is our main message was wash your hands and don't touch your face. However, that seems to have gone beyond or gone by the wayside. in terms of people often touching their face, and they're always touching their masks when they're on their face. They'll be adjusting them, they'll be pulling them down to have a sip of coffee or eating something or whatever. It's just because you wear a strip of something across your nose and your mouth does not mean that you're wearing a mask properly or fully. So I'm just one that I like masks, and I feel that they are beneficial, but the proper education of how they should be worn and what type of mask, etc., that you have, and that you don't just throw it in your pocket and pull it out the next time you go into a building. It's just not an effective method of preventing anything. And I know the enforcement issues. If you're doing that, would that require that the retail businesses and stuff give out masks to people? Otherwise, they're going to lose that potential customer. And I know that in Okotoks and other places, they do that for people that don't have a mask on, and then they take it, strap it around their ears, and it's just not really beneficial. I think that it's so for those reasons, and I'm not trying to please any group on one side or the other. I just don't feel that it's necessary for us to have mandatory masks by law. And it just gives people one more reason who would rather not, or they think that there is no problem with being in close contact with other people. If they are in a group of people, they feel that if they have a mask on, they're okay to just go right up to that person and be less than 6 feet away from another person. And it's just from the cases that I've heard of a painter, for example, inside a house doing a painting job, had COVID, but he didn't know it. And he was wearing a mask, but he infected the people in that home. So it's just, I think it has to be a personal choice. And the choice you're making by wearing a mask is that you're going to try to protect the people around you, not protect yourself. So that's my opinion and where I stand.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Snodgrass, and thank you very much, Councillor Moore and Councillor Masterman. Along the lines, I just firstly want to thank everyone who has submitted letters and feedback to Council about this issue, and it's always wonderful to have the public engagement. This discussion, like all others we have, will not please 100% of the people, and that's the fact of being in the role of a decision maker. And as elected officials, all of us are just trying to do our best to navigate these uncertain times. How I come to this is this discussion should solely be about whether a mandatory mask bylaw be instituted. We are not here to discuss the efficacy of masks or the insufficiency of masks. And as a councillor and an individual, I choose to formulate my opinions no matter what we speak about, based on how I intrinsically feel and not based on fear and media. And I think basically where I'm going from this is, do we as a council believe that we should have the authority to take away another person's rights? I believe strongly in individual right to choose. And I'm not in favor of this particular mask mandate at all, because in my mind, it completely threatens and contravenes our Canadian Charter of Rights. And if that puts me at risk of looking like I love my liberty, you're darn right. I love my liberty. Everyone has the right to liberty, security, and the right to not be deprived thereof. Liberty is a state of being free within society from control or oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. I feel if a business wants to have a mask rule in their business, it's up to the individual businesses. It's personal choice. There's scientific evidence existing for both sides of the argument. Choose what makes you feel safe. Choose what feels right for you. And this issue has really made people so divisive. And frankly, I am so disheartened by the term anti-masker. I think that's pitting people against each other. If we're a people-first community, we have got to stop labeling people and honor the fact that we have the right to choose. Freedom of choice is an inherent right. Stop judging, be kind, respectful, and above all, seek out strategies to help decrease your fear and stress. Continue to hand wash. Continue to wear a mask if it makes you feel safe. Physically distance. I mean, I agree with Councillor Moore. The only time I've had my distance compromised is people that come right up. It's very frustrating. And also speaking to some of the comments that we received as council about being our responsibility to ensure residents' personal public safety. The town is responsible to ensure that you have clean, safe water to drink and proper wastewater treatment facilities, garbage removal, access to social services, recreation, traffic safety, fire safety, all the things as a municipality, it's our obligations to provide. But to ensure your own personal public safety, I feel that's our individual responsibility. And how I kind of think about it in my own head is some people choose to leave their houses unlocked and they feel safe. Others choose to lock their house to feel safe. It's about doing what feels right for you. And, you know, I think it just really saddens me about how this has divided people. And I just don't think that us at this level, I know I'm not willing to contravene the Canadian Charter of Rights for this. And maybe I look extreme, but I really value my freedom. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMillan. We'll go back to Councillor Masterman.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass, and I'll be really quick. I appreciate everybody's comments on this a lot. Just to clarify, Councillor Moore, you wear a mask to protect me. I wear a mask to protect you, and that's as simple as it gets. Councillor McMillan, good comments all. I think one thing you forgot to say is everybody has the right to good health, and absolutely nobody has the right to compromise somebody else's good health. I'll just leave it at that.
Councillor Nychuk.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. My thanks to the councillors for their input and opinions so far, to the public that's contacted us so far. Not an easy time for anybody right now. But coming to some of the things that Councillor McMillan said, simply put, for me, healthcare is not a municipal directive. That's not our purvey. We don't have a budget for that. We don't make decisions on that. We don't build infrastructure for that. It's a provincial and a federal area of jurisdiction. I would hope that we're getting led in the right ways by the federal and provincial governments. I'd hesitate to make any kind of a decision today based on the fact that the provincial government is coming out with something tomorrow. We're not quite sure what that is, but they are going to make some kind of a address to the province tomorrow. What that will bring, we'll see. So for me right now, it's all based on, this is a card that the provincial government needs to play. It's not something that within our realm and what we've been elected for is something that we should be making a decision on. I know some other communities have made those decisions, and good for them to step into it or step away from it, however they see fit for their communities. But I'm hoping that our provincial government provides leadership in that regard. And again, I say I'm hoping they provide leadership in whatever form that might be, because that's part of their purvey. It's not ours. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Nychuk. Councillor Cooey.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass, and everyone else for their opinions. This is a challenging one, I think, for all of us, and probably one we never thought we would have to, we would be talking about. And again, I think Councillor Nychuk's got a really good point. The headline in the Herald and on Global News is that there are some things being imposed tomorrow morning. So it will be interesting to see what those are. I've often felt that it might have been easier to mandate masks provincially a few weeks ago rather than look at shutting down businesses, but we're not making those decisions either. So without those facts, we did a great job. High River has done a great job of keeping our numbers down without a mask bylaw, and kudos to our community for doing that. I think we all have a choice to go into a store and shop in stores that we feel comfortable in. Whether we are wearing a mask again, is our choice. Personally, I hope that I hope everyone is wearing a mask who can, who needs to. I hear people, I was in 3 stores this past week, and because we don't have a mask bylaw, people from Calgary are coming to High River and announcing that they're here because we don't have a mask bylaw. When, if you read the fine print of AHS enhancements, urban isn't really supposed to cross over to rural and vice versa to try and stop the spread. So on one hand, I think, if we did have that bylaw, it would stop that transmission. But on the other hand, we have people commuting to Calgary that's enhanced, that are coming back and forth to our community. So there just isn't an easy answer, but I hear day in and day out, and I see the strains on our healthcare providers, on our physicians, and not necessarily, High River isn't impacted. We don't have an ICU, but they are feeling the strain. We are short-staffed, and for that, I plead to people to wear your mask, to think of those people in the healthcare, and even beyond that, the people whose health is compromised, and that need to stay healthy. That this is a deadly disease to them. I'm just, as much as I personally want to see everyone do that, I'm not sure that it's our mandate. I feel compelled to support that healthcare team and saying yes, we should, but I'm just not convinced that it's our role. Thanks.
Thanks, Kathy. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Previous council has spoken very well to this entire issue, and I've struggled with it as well. I've witnessed some of these, I call them the mask battles in stores, where people are really going at each other for either wearing or not wearing a mask. I've seen them attack staff members of different businesses. I've seen all kinds of things around this issue. And I plead for the government to make a decision on this and make it happen at a provincial level. I just don't believe that it's up to a municipality to make this decision. I wear a mask. I'm not knowledgeable enough or have enough degrees, as Bruce pointed out, to determine whether a mask is appropriate or not, or effective or not. But I look at this from a municipal responsibility perspective, and I just don't believe it's up to our municipality to make that decision for our residents. I encourage the province to get aggressive and make something happen here, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Nobody else, I guess it's my turn. Appreciate the motion that you've put forward, Councillor Masterman, because it, you know, we need to make a decision on this as to where we're going. So I'm going to start my thing. I am 100% pro mask. Myself and my family and my son, if I don't wear it, he's going to put one on my face. There's just no getting around it. And you'll never convince me with any Facebook post or some study from somebody. And yeah, newsflash, some doctors, not just because you have DR in front of your name doesn't always mean that you got all the answers in the world. So you'll never change my mind on whether there's an effective or that these things work. Masks work. They stop spread. They stop, I don't know, I could go on for it. The issue is with mask bylaws and stuff. Masks work and they stop transmission, which lowers cases. If we don't start to lower cases, we will end up in another lockdown, which is the big piece that none of us want. We don't want to see our businesses closing down again and everything else, which boggles my mind why some people are so against just wearing a piece of cloth on their face to try to do our part to keep this economy going, if that's your big concern. It just, I don't get it, but that's my personal thing. I am against our municipality and being involved in mandating mask use to our residents and businesses. And I don't know that it's necessary either. Shopping around High River, Canadian Tire, Co-op, Sobeys over the weekend, I'm not a word of a lie, at least a 90% mask uptake. 90% of the people at a minimum were wearing masks. So I'm not seeing it. The other thing is looking at the numbers as to the other communities around us that have mask bylaws. Sorry, the mandates do not seem to have any effect on your numbers. It's not lowering them, that's for damn sure. You know, and you can argue that High River's doing better without one, you know, if you're looking strictly at those maps and the numbers. This mask issue, it's really sad because it's overtaking the actual issue of the pandemic, and it's overtaking all the discussions about this pandemic, and it's turned into, like everything else is now, it's whether it's politics or the pandemic, it's an us versus them conversation, and it's, if you're not with me, then you're against me type of attitude. And it's horrible because that type of approach to things ends the conversation. There's no rational speaking about the issue anymore when you take that stance. How people are acting in this community, I haven't seen very many negative interactions other than one that myself, my wife, and our kids were involved in on Halloween, where we're doing our social distancing, and it was awfully fun because everybody's got their 6-foot skeleton arm putting their candy into Oran's bucket and everything, and it was a lot of fun till we got to the one house where the guy showed up at the door, and Lindsay and I are 25, 30 feet, we're back by the sidewalk, and the guy has an N95 mask on and goes to cussing my wife out for her not wearing a mask. Now, we thought it was because she'd had a bad Halloween costume on and didn't have a Halloween mask on, but no, it was all about the pandemic, or all about the protection masks, the COVID masks. And it was brutal with my 6-year-old son sitting there and this guy yelling over top of him, and then proceeds, after he's done his tirade, then he proceeds to hand him candy with an 8-inch pair of tongs. Like, it's just mind-boggling. So it's not just us versus them on the mask thing. We've got to start dealing with this respectfully and stuff, because that was brutal. And I made the point of, after a meeting I had last week with a number of our municipalities around, I made a point of contacting a couple of the other municipalities that do have mandatory masks. One got back to me in time, the other one that we can talk tomorrow. But so this community, I'm not going to say who it is or who I talked to or anything, but this community, they just implemented their mask bylaw 2.5 weeks ago, something like that. And I asked him how it was working and what he thought about it and everything else. And he said, at best, we're looking at probably a 50-50 uptake on the use of masks. He said it hasn't really changed much. He said it has, or I shouldn't say that, it has increased mask usage, but he said we're at 50-50 at the best. And I said, well, why is it that you decided to do this? And he said, well, we used it just as a way of creating awareness on the importance of masks. And I got a problem with us being involved in that kind of thing, because if we want to create awareness on something, we don't create new bylaws or use words like mandating things or anything. We put a PSA out there, public service announcement. And if that's what council wants to do, if that's what our goal is just to create awareness, well, let's put a PSA out on council's thoughts on this. So I'm really struggling with this whole mask talk about it. I'm respectful of those that do wear them. I'm respectful of those that don't wear them, whether I agree with it or not. But we have in this province a provincial health authority whose job, and a provincial government whose job it is to deal with these matters. The town of High River does not have a health authority in this government, so in this level of government. And I absolutely agree with the other councillors that this is a provincial thing to do. We haven't seen our premier in a week and a half or so, or heard from him on this. Yes, it's going to come out tomorrow, it sounds like. We'll wait and see what that means, but this is where these decisions need to be made, is in Edmonton, and not putting it on and our small municipalities of us local officials getting thrown into this thing as though this was something that's under our umbrella, because it is not. And if we're using it as a way to shame the provincial government, I'm not in for doing that either. If you won't do it, then we will, kind of thing. I'm not into that. It's their responsibility. They need to get off their ass and deal with it. Sorry for using that word, but you might catch me doing it again sometime. There's my piece. We'll go back to Councillor Masterman.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Just before the vote, I just wanted to thank everybody for a really good discussion, for thinking about this a lot, and you know, as I have as well, and just, you know, we all have our thoughts, and I really appreciate a respectful dialogue, and I just felt we had to make a decision, and you're about to do that. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Councillor Masterman. So the motion is up on the chat log here. I don't know if the public can actually see the motion, so I will reread the motion from Councillor Masterman. Being that council direct administration to prepare a bylaw requiring masking in all indoor public spaces except schools for all residents over the age of 2. The only exceptions being people with valid medical reasons documented in writing by a medical professional. So that is Councillor Masterman's motion, and he has requested a recorded vote. So I will start that by, I'll start with Councillor Masterman. How do you vote?
I'm in favor, Mayor Snodgrass. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore?
It's not wanting to unmute me. I'm opposed. There's Snodgrass.
Thank you. Councillor McMillan?
Opposed.
Councillor Cooey? Kathy dealing with her dog? Or is she frozen?
She looks frozen.
She looks frozen, so we'll come back to her. Councillor Kinghorn, how do you vote?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I am opposed.
Councillor Nychuk?
Opposed.
Mayor Snodgrass is opposed. Back to Councillor Cooey. Are you unfrozen yet?
I thought it was the rest of you were frozen, not me. Opposed.
Thank you. So the motion is defeated by a vote of 6-1. Thank you very much. It's a conversation that we had to have and much appreciated with the motion. Councillor Masterman to bring that forward for something for us to actually vote on this time, and we'll proceed from there. As to, we have absolutely no problem at all in revisiting this again. If it has to come up, then any councillor can bring it up, but we're really waiting to see what the provincial government says in their announcements tomorrow, because something's got to be coming. Doing nothing isn't making it work. So the frustrations from Dr. Hinshaw today, she was very controlled, but you could tell she was very frustrated at the same time. So any other questions, comments before we adjourn? I got no hands up, so this meeting is adjourned at 4:32 p.m. Thank you very much.